So if I ever catch myself thinking about, feeling depressed or thinking about crap, like most of the time it is if I ever catch myself like comparing myself to other people or start thinking about what I wish I had and stuff like that instead of being grateful for things I do have, thinking about all the negative stuff, that'll put me in a bad way. If I can sort of throw that by thinking about all the good things I have right now, then I just start feeling good, and then I realize that I live a sick life,
I love your work, man. And
Thanks, man.
there's a harmony, there's a balance with how you do things, right? So you are predominantly, there's a lot of black and white in your work, contrasted by heavy color pop.
Yeah.
So you have that balance, typography and then image that's complemented in that as well. And then there's a lot of attention given to the composition. And I think that's one of the things, and that's the contrast there, because you've got those street style posters, which is meant to look torn, haphazard, and almost accidental, but I can tell it's not.
Yeah,
right? I can tell that there's a lot of consideration going into the composition. This element needs to go there, and then there needs to be complemented by this one. Now we need to add in a bit of color pop. If there's typography up there, then we need to have this bit of typography scaled, and scale is important as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So like, I think that I can see that. Like, I'm big on breaking down design, and I see that, but I think that would be something that doesn't really get noticed as much, because, and that's a compliment, because it looks haphazard, but it doesn't feel that way.
Yeah. Like, right? Definitely some of the pieces are, I mean, pretty much all of them are, like, I plan them out at the start, like to do a digital mock-up, so I have something to sort of reference, but then it always changes, like I might get to how it looks as a digital mock-up, and then I'm like, oh, it's missing something, so I either have to rip things away or add more things to it.
Yeah.
But I find it's always good to start with some sort of base, because when I first started messing around with these collages, I would just freestyle them.
Yeah.
And some were sweet, and then some I was just like, man, that looks like trash, or like I could do better. And I didn't want to, like, it's not like if I'm painting, I can just paint over it. Like, I mean, I can paint over it, but then I have to go out and get the posters printed again. And I don't have the printer there, so it's like that would, like, delay like a week or so. Whereas, like, if I had a printer in the studio, which I don't have room for, but if I had one, if I mess up, then I can easily just print it out straight away and go over it.
So take us all the way back, man. Like, where did all this creativity, where did your journey start?
Well, I mean, like, I guess I've always been more creative than any other sort of thing in my life. Yeah. So even as a kid, I was like, drawing, copying comics and things like that. I wasn't good at it, but I gave it a shot anyway. I was just always interested in those sort of things. Even like with graffiti, like I remember being in primary school and not really knowing what it was, but I was just interested in it, and I loved, like, tags and things like that. So I guess as I got older, so I went from, like, as a kid drawing cartoons and stuff like that, then as a teenager get into graffiti, and then sort of being in and out of that. And then I had a big, like, years there where I wasn't doing anything creative.
Yeah.
I was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do in life, and I just sort of drifted around. Like, all I wanted was enough money to party and just hang out with my mates.
Yeah.
And, like, all my mates were tradies. No one was doing anything. I didn't know anyone doing any, like, design work or anything like that. So I wasn't doing anything, and then got to a point where I'm like I was doing trade work. I was spray painting cars. So I guess it was kind of creative in a way. But got to a point where I'm like, man, this isn't me. And, like, I probably had, like, a fucking breakdown or something to my parents, and then they, said, oh, you should go study or something. So then I went into study graphic design, and then around that time I was getting into photography as well. So then while studying graphic design, sort of doing photography, just like street photography and stuff like that, I started making this little, like, zine, like a little graph zine. It was more like a little book. Like, it was kind of like a good quality, it was almost like a little high-end sort of graffiti mag.
Just your own work?
Just my own work. The first issue was my own work, so it was all just, like, photography. It wasn't like graffiti pieces. It was just, like, photography based around like graffiti and
Cool.
streets and stuff like that. And then I did like, you know, a few issues of that. And obviously, if I look at the first issue, it was trash. But the other ones were actually kind of cool. Then it got better and better. And then I kind of got to a stage where maybe I was getting a bit bored of that, or I don't know. And then I wanted to get into T-shirts, making T-shirts. So then me and my brother got into, we started like a clothing brand. And through that, like, the graphics I was doing were kind of like inspired by like punk flyers. So that's where I started doing like the collage work, but it was on like a smaller scale to fit the T-shirts.
Yeah.
And it was all ripped up. There was no bright colors. It was just like, you know, black and white sort of stuff.
That positive attitude one that you've got on your website.
Oh, yeah.
Bring that back, man.
Oh, yeah. So that sort of vibe, it was that sort of vibe. The graphics were similar to that. But the positive mental attitude thing, like, these days, I just want to live like a positive life, man. Like when I was younger, I was a bit of a hater.
Yeah.
You know, I was a bit narrow-minded. And as I got older, I just thought, man, life's too short to be a hater and shit like that.
Yeah, I hear
you. And then, so for the last, like, you know, 5 years or something, I've been quite positive. But then in 2020, I had a bit of a health scare. I just one day I had to go to a hospital and have brain surgery.
Jeez.
And it was kind of like, you know, like I never really freak out about, like, if I feel a bit sick, I'm always like brushing it off and things like that. And then I'm in hospital and I'm thinking, oh, yeah, I'll be out tomorrow or whatever. But then they're like, oh, it's actually pretty serious. And they're like, yeah, you have to stay here. We have to do brain surgery. You know, we got to open up your head, take out, because I had this thing called an AVM. I can't remember the full word for it, but what it was like these tangled blood vessels in your brain, and mine had just like popped. Not too much though, and it just started bleeding. But some people, like, they burst, and you die. So when I was in there in the hospital, I was like, it made me think about like life a lot, because they came and said, look, man, you're relatively young, relatively still kind of young. And you're still kind of pretty healthy. So they're like, but there is a really small chance that you might not make it through the surgery and you could die. So I was kind of like, fucking hell, all right. And that's when I started thinking about what I really wanted to do in life, and how I just wanted to, you know, I stress less now, and I just wanted to have that positive mental attitude towards everything. Like, I'm not positive all the time, but I try and be positive towards most things. You know, I try and be happy each day, and, you know, I try and look at the positive things like all the time, even if, like, you know, I'm in a shit situation, or, you know, have no money at the time or whatever. I try and think about all the blessings I actually have in life.
That you need that. You need to have that outlook, man.
Yeah.
And, you know, sorry to hear that you had to
No,
go through that to be able to realize this. Like,
yeah, that's it. Like, and I was older. It was kind of like, you know, I wish I could have changed my mindset. Like, as that whole experience really changed my mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, fuck, I wish you know, if this had happened earlier, maybe my mindset would have been different in my 20s. You know what I mean?
Fuck, we were just before we were talking about, you know, because we both just turned 40,
Yeah.
and you asked me how did I feel when I turned 40, and there was a lot of just unpacking everything that you just said. That was the biggest takeaway that I had, and it was not I don't think, like, in hindsight, was not the best approach to it. Was that I wish that the way that I approach life now is how I approached it in my 20s.
Oh, dude, I'm exactly the same, you know?
But then it was more like that, no, I had to go through that,
go
through the bullshit
to
arrive to where I am now. So I am only the way I am now.
Yeah, that's it.
Because of all that. It could be just because, you know, we've all the accumulation of life experience that we've had. You know, we're fortunate to be healthy, be pursuing things that we want to do. And there is a lot to be grateful for.
For sure, man, for sure.
Yeah.
It is weird. Like, I feel like some people have it, you know, the whole mindset and everything figured out at a younger age. Whereas, like, yeah, sometimes I'm like, damn, why didn't I think like I think now when I was in my 20s? But then I think, you know, even though all my 20s was just partying and, going to clubs and taking drugs and whatever, I still think of those as like some amazing times, and they like I kind of needed it to get it out of my system then, so I can be who I am now and have the drive and passion and mindset for things.
Yeah.
Now, you know.
Yeah, man. That's incredible. That's a really, you know, powerful realization, a powerful message. And I think we all should be striving towards doing something like that. And you know, that was a big catalyst for wanting to do this and just wanting to learn and grow and develop, speaking with other people, because I also realized that like throughout my teens and 20s, I was real arrogant with things, right?
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of success came to me without really having to try very hard. So I didn't really understand the value of hard work and didn't know that hard work is always going to overtake talent and skill.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
Always.
For sure.
So I didn't have that. And then so there was this arrogance about the way I carried myself until you enter the real world. And then when you were going to get outworked by people that give a shit. So then now I've realized that there's just so much more that I can learn from other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to do this and then just get inspired by other creative people that are doing things better than I am and doing awesome stuff. So that's man, it's great to hear that there is a lot of parallels between the way that we've just been, you know, cruising through life.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
That's
so
it.
now you just had your first, like, at 40. Because you would have been around about the time you would have just turned 40 when you did that.
Pretty much, these
things happen.
Yeah, these things happen. Yeah, well, that's kind of like the whole "these things happen." The title of the show was kind of like tied back to you know, the whole brain surgery thing. Because now I kind of look at things like, oh well, fuck it, these things happen, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like so that I'd had that as a goal that I'd wanted to do for a while now. But you know, like, I didn't know anyone that had a gallery or anything like that. And I'd actually reached out to a few galleries and no one got back to me. And then it just so happened that one of my friends, she worked at the place where I had the show, at the Choice, the gallery there on the corner. And so I reached out to her and she just said, oh, you know, you could talk to my boss. And I spoke to them and they were cool about it. And they just said, these are the things you have to do. So they pretty much like don't run it like a gallery. So I had to do all the work myself, which is fine. You know, it was a good learning.
So they just gave you the space.
Yeah, they said, you know, you rent the space out, but then you do all the marketing. You got to hang the walls. You got to patch it up and everything like that. You got to supply the beers. So I was like, sweet. I actually don't mind that because then I like being fully in control of everything. Yeah. Because like, you know, I'm an anxious person. So if I don't have full control or I don't know, you know, like someone else is doing some other job, I'm worrying if they're doing it the right way or if it's done properly and like if they're going to do it on time. So if I'm doing it all myself, even though I was fucking so overwhelmed with all the shit I had to do, I did feel like, you know, I'm fully in control here. So if anything goes wrong, it's all on me. And, you know, if anything, you know, I can fix these things or, you know, but I had a whole list of shit that I needed to do. Yeah. And I would just tick off and make sure I had it done.
And it turned out, man. Like
it was good, man. I was happy. I was really happy with it. Yeah,
it was good work.
I was really happy with it. The night was a bit of a blur. Not that I was drunk or anything like that. Like I don't really drink at all. I think I had like 3 drinks over 3 hours, and that's probably the most drinks I've had all year.
Just to have something in your hand.
Yeah, just to have something in my hand, you know. But like just trying to like go around and like say hi to people and shit like that. Like, you know, the night goes so fast, and then I'm like, there were friends there that I didn't even get to say hi to because I'm like just running around trying to talk to everyone. Yeah, I didn't really get to step back and really like take it all in.
That's just that experience, man. They're always like that. Like any big occasion like that, you know, like
it's like a birthday and shit like that.
Yeah, and it's all part of that process. So like that opening night was a celebration of all the hard work. So when you think about like, if you're looking at the process of things, you know, you had to organize it all yourself and you had to still do the work. Yeah. And then even being there to celebrate it that night, that was also work.
Yeah, that's it. Like it's a lot of work. Like I'm an full-on introvert. So, you know, being around so many people all night, like my energy gets drained. and I was like hella nervous leading up to it, like, fuck, is anyone going to come? Like, I knew my close friends would come.
Yeah.
But I was really happy with it, man, and it got me G'd up to do more shows.
Yeah, I mean,
You
like
know, yeah.
when you now having a solo exhibition, it's like it's locked in. You're now
Yeah, yeah.
officially.
Well, that's what, because I always thought, like, anyone can just put art on Instagram, and like, if you can sell and like get your name out there that way, that's totally fine. But I felt like I wanted to do something that showed that I was serious about being an artist, and it was just a goal I wanted to, sort of tick off.
Yeah, that's a
Do
big
the
one.
solo,
And you did
yeah.
it at 40 as well, man. What a
Yeah,
way
yeah.
to bring it in.
Sometimes I think, man, like, I'm a lot older than the people I like hang around with in the art world.
Yeah.
So I should be ahead of the game, but, got into things late. And I probably got into it at a good time though, like with my mindset the way it is now.
Exactly.
And the work I make now. I think if I was making work in my 20s, it might be completely different, and
Yeah.
it might be really shit, and it might not be really me, because I feel like, I've grown so much over the last 10 years. I feel like I've changed a lot as a person. And I feel like that sort of resonates in my work.
Yeah, man. And, you find that inspiration because like I was saying to you before that I used to do a lot of art, focus art, like painting and illustration back in my 20s. And I've moved away from that for multitude of reasons. But if I now look back at that work, there was so much angst and negativity in it, if I'm being honest, man. It wasn't coming from a nice place. Like that was where I found a lot of the inspiration.
I feel like I could relate to that as well, because even when we were doing the clothing brand with my brother, there was no like sort of really negative things, but like at the time I was probably taking like, drugs too often. So a lot of the designs were like, drug reference things.
Yeah.
And now I look back and I'm like, it's not really a positive thing to put out there,
Yeah. No, man. So I think that's all part of it.
Yeah.
That's all part of it. And then now you have your work, and it does, like, you look at it and like when you see it and it feels real. Oh fuck! I don't want to say just good, because it is. It feels good. And then there's also just the way that, like, the composition is what I love about it. But there is a lot of subtle messaging behind it. Like I'm thinking that the way that the titles that you use, the typography, that it's all so intentional.
Yeah.
Well.
I mean, like a lot of it comes from like a lot of the pieces in my solo show were named after like songs from like, bands or and songs that I've kind of like have either made me feel some type of way, like a good way, or but if there's ever, not all the pieces, but when there is like strong typography in there, I've tried to have like positive sort of messages in there, if it's lyrics from a song and things like that, because I do want to, I don't know, like want to spread positivity into the world, I want it to be a peaceful place.
Yeah, I think we all should be taking on that responsibility.
Yeah.
And like we do it in our own way. You doing it through your art, but you're saying that you take your music was a big influence.
Yeah.
Where do you draw your inspiration from? Tell us some of the bands, the music, all the other creative outlets.
Well, with music, like I grew up listening to like like grunge, punk, like heavy metal and things like that, and then I didn't get into rap till later, like in my 15 or 16 or something like that. So a lot of the aesthetic as well comes from like the punk rock styles.
Yeah, for sure.
And then just music in general, man. Like it like makes me feel good if I'm listening to a good song. Even if it's like I was saying, if I listen to that on repeat, like I was talking to my friend earlier, and like he was asking me what my Spotify Wrapped was or whatever. I was like, dude, it's been the last 5 same artists last few years, because like those certain artists have songs where they make me feel good, or they just inspire me some kind of way. Does it make
Oh man, I completely get that.
Yeah.
My number one on Spotify Wrapped, which has been probably for the last 10 plus years, is Thievery Corporation.
What is it?
Thievery Corporation.
Oh, I've never.
So it's like Massive Attack.
Okay, yeah.
So it's just that kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And it just makes me feel good, relaxed, comfortable, uplifted.
Yeah,
but not too G'd up,
Yeah.
It's just something for me just to have and to be able to zone in on what it is that I'm doing.
Yeah, definitely. I like listening to songs that are gonna get me uplifted, like get me in a good mood, really raise my vibration.
Yeah.
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 And then I feel like that helps me create better work, puts me in a better mood, just gives me more energy. And then sometimes, I'm like, ideas will come from that.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily like, inspired by lyrics or anything from the song, but just listening to something that makes me feel good can just like get ideas flowing in my brain.
Yeah. I was watching this video the other day, and they were talking about there's three things that we should be focusing on, with everything that we do, there's your beliefs, actions, and emotions, and how they're all connected.
Yeah.
So, with music, you're surrounding yourself and putting yourself in an environment and bringing in the stimulus that's going to, and like you're saying, that's going to elevate and bring up your vibrations to be able to then output what it is that music is creating within you, right? So, it's about like surrounding yourself with the stimulus that you want to be able to then action you to do the things that you want to do, to then get the response that is then going to put you into this positive mindset. And it's just going to keep going around and around. So then once you have positive outcomes, then it's going to be affirming your belief that you have the ability to do that.
For sure.
Which is then going to shift your emotions and then bring in more of all of that back into your life. Sure.
I feel like, I don't know about you, but with me, man, like I need to be feeling good and happy to be creating things. If I'm in like, a lower mood, I find it really hard to like make a design or, start working on a piece. So even if I've like gone to the studio and I'm like not feeling the best, I'm in like a bit in a low mood or something like that, I'll like fuck around for a while and like I just can't get anything, I can't do anything that I actually like.
Yeah.
So it's like I kind of have to stop until I start feeling like I'm in a better mood, and like sometimes music will help to do that.
Yeah, well, and that's exactly it. So then you'll be in control. Like if you're not feeling great, so then what are the choices at that point? You can continue feeling that way, or you can then start doing things to bring you out of that slump.
Yeah,
So
that's it.
Chuck on some music. For me, it will be like to do that, or get to the gym, go for a run.
Yeah.
Do something that that's going to positively influence and to shift that mindset.
And I feel like these days, like I'm a lot better at controlling my thoughts. So if I start having negative thoughts, back in the day, I'd have negative thoughts and, it would last a week and I'd be like mega depressed and I'd be like hating on everything. But these days, like I can, start having negative thoughts and I can just fully sometimes throw that and then like put myself in a more positive and happier feeling. And then I can actually start creating work.
How do you do that? What do you do?
Just start thinking of like, so if I ever catch myself thinking about, feeling depressed or, thinking about crap, like most of the time it is if I ever catch myself like comparing myself to other people or, start thinking about what I wish I had and stuff like that, instead of being grateful for the things I do have, thinking about all the negative stuff, that'll put me in a bad way. If I can sort of throw that by thinking about all the good things I have right now, then I just start feeling good. And then I realize that I live a sick life,
Yeah. Yeah.
Other people might look at it and be like, I would hate that dude's life, But for me, like, I love my life,
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to really get to that point. And I feel like the hospital thing, that like the brain surgery thing, that really helped. Whereas now I'm like, I used to be like, fuck, why don't I have that? Why doesn't this happen to me? But now I'm just like, I think about the littlest things. Like me and my partner always say, oh, we live the best life.
That's
so
awesome,
grateful
dude.
for each other.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, that comparison, they say what they say is that comparison is the
It's the
thief
worst.
of joy.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is.
But it's hard, like, to not do that sometimes with social media, especially if you're getting caught up with like what other people are doing, and you're like, fuck, I'm not doing enough or whatever.
Yeah, and then I for sure, I think everyone gets caught up in that, and then I just got to remind myself that they're putting on, at best, a positive front, but it could also just be completely fake as well.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's it.
I try to when whatever it is that I'm sharing on social media, try to be as authentic as I can with it. I used to be really afraid of sharing anything because of that. Is because that everyone is so polished, everyone's life is so great that like mine. Why isn't mine like that?
Yeah. No, I'd see things and I'm like, fuck, my house doesn't look like that or whatever.
No. But it's then you think what is it about their life that is so good? What is it that they have that I want? And then you start peeling it back and like, if they, I don't know, man, let's just say a nice car. I don't really need that.
Yeah, that's
but
it.
But then it'll be nice to have, but then like, what do they have to do to get that? How many hours of work did they have to put in for that in a job they maybe didn't want?
That's it. And then you're sort of thinking, are they really happy? Because you can be happy and have nothing, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Just be.
It's just like whatever you got to think about the way you want to live life and the things you want and the lifestyle that you want,
Yeah, and that's where it gets particularly hard for people with doing with creative pursuits, because in a lot of ways that path isn't planned, right? It's not paved.
Yeah, that's it.
They've got to try to figure it out on their own.
You're figuring it out as you go,
As you go, yeah. There's no like, okay, so get out of, you finish high school, now you got to go to uni to do this particular course. And then once you finish that course, you can go apply for entry-level jobs or an apprenticeship. And then from there, you work your way up the ranks, blah, 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 up until you retire. And then you can go enjoy yourself. Yeah. So there's not, that doesn't exist.
Yeah, with the creative path, that's...
No, and everyone's path is
different. Yeah.
And it is all very different. So you can take a bit of inspiration, but then you can't really make that comparison because the way that you do things is going to be vastly different, or even like a little bit different to vastly different from the next person.
Sure.
Right? Like it feels as though that you and me are at a very, very similar spot in life, but we've had to go and do our own things, go on our own way to get to that. To get to that point.
Yeah.
And then with people that are, that's the nature of creativity, is that you have to do something new. Otherwise, you're not creating, you're replicating.
Gets stale,
Yeah, so if you're trying to do something new, it means that you have to. There's risk involved in that.
For sure.
And it's hard, man. It's hard to want to be able to take that plunge and to push something.
For sure,
new.
man. And then obviously, putting your work out there, the feeling of getting judged, or the fear of getting judged, and like I feel like I'm good at that now, but like if I was doing stuff when I was younger, I definitely cared a lot more about like what people thought, but now I'm just kind of like, I don't really give a fuck.
Give a fuck.
Yeah. When I think about it, like, people have been hating on me or talking shit about me since I was like 16 years old, so I'm like, I don't really give a fuck about it now.
Yeah, and even more than that, it's like you were saying that you were hating when you were younger, you were hating on people, and I was the same, man. And now being older, I realized that had a lot more to do with me than it did with them.
Sure.
It's like, why do I feel so inferior that I have to shit on someone?
Yeah, it'd be like an insecurity type thing.
Exactly. Exactly. So, if anyone out there is going to be hating on you, it's coming from, it says more about them.
That's what I think. Yeah. When someone's hating, like they're either jealous that they're not doing, they might not want to be doing exactly what you're doing, but they might want to be doing something, and they see you're doing something, you're trying to do something at least, and they're kind of like hating on that because they're not doing anything.
And it's easier to try to bring someone down than for you to rise up.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I feel like there's, not everyone, but there's a lot of people out there that I feel like they don't want to give props to other people or support other people because they feel that it takes away success from them.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like, man, there's enough success and abundance in the world to go around for everyone. As long as you're nice to people,
that's Yeah, you're singing my song, man. This is there's a lot of parallels, and really it's great to be able to like meet people that are like, have
Yeah.
that same
But I
wavelength.
feel like maybe, it gets to our age and it's like you start to
Yeah.
understand those things. Whereas like I was saying, like some younger people, they've got it figured out from, when they're really young,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have to go through the shit, or not the shit, but they don't have to be like some negative hater when they're
Yeah.
a kid,
They
or
just skip that bit.
they just skip that bit and like, have love for everyone from
Yeah.
day one,
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on personal development, and I think that the people that do spend time on personal development is because that they were coming from a shit place,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
For
a
sure.
darker place, and then they had to. I mean, man, you could live in that space forever, but like you don't want that.
No.
So I've been spending a bit of time on that and reading up, and they all kind of just lead to the same point. At the end, it's just like, just be nice, man. Be kind.
Just be kind to people. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not hard,
No,
It's not hard, but I feel like, we've all done it, but like some people get stuck in like playing the victim mentality, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like, you really need to push through that
Yeah.
and, be nice to people. You're going to bring more positivity into your own life if you act that way. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah, exactly, man. And it goes back to that thing. Like if you go into you carry that attitude with you through life, it changes the way that you behave.
Yeah.
It changes your actions, and then that if you what's that saying that if you think you can or you can't, you're probably right.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and it all comes into that. So like if you do carry a positive attitude as much as you can, and even like sometimes shit gets
Sometimes
hard.
it's hard, Yeah.
But then there's a lesson and there's value in hard shit as
For
well.
sure.
Yeah, so it's a matter of then trying to see beyond that negative and just try to find what can I get from this, rather than it just like bogging me down, or the world doesn't give a shit about you, right? Like it's
No one, when you think about it, no one really, when you're younger, you think, fuck, all these people, everyone cares. No one gives a fuck, everyone is caring about their own life,
Yeah, for the most part, like you got to take care of yourself before you can start taking care of
that's
others, right?
yeah.
And like you don't want to be a burden on other people as well. You don't want to be that person that saps all the energy.
Yeah, that's it. Because there's definitely people out there that, you hang with them and you can feel that energy. You're like, man, you can feel if they're just a hater towards everything. It rubs, I don't know about you, but it rubs off on me, and then I leave. And like, if I'm in a room and everyone's like just sitting around talking shit about someone, it's weird, man. After a while, I start feeling like, it's almost like I feel dirty, and I'm like, man, I can't do this. Like I'm feeling like a bit sick or something right now,
And it stays with you as well.
Yeah,
you take that
yeah.
back home with you, then like, I know exactly what
It's
you
hard,
mean,
man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, because we haven't really had a chance as to really connect and to speak much. It was just more like, I connected with you, saw your work, loved it, bumped into you a bunch of times throughout, just doing the
Different shows.
the shows,
Yeah.
the circuits. And so just having this opportunity to just sit down and chat with you, man, it's
cool.
real eye-opening,
I'm enjoying
man.
it.
Like, it's really
it's
cool.
good, man. Really cool.
So, man, when turning 40, how was it different to turning 30?
Oh shit! Well, man, like I said, in my 20s, it was just party, didn't think about my future at all. I was just cruising, man. I was just having fun, and I had heaps of fun, But I was, I was pretty much cooked every weekend, And then even when I turned 30, same thing, buying the bags, getting on the pingers. And that happened for a few years. And then it was only like leading up to turning 40, like this at the start of this year, actually, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go a whole year without taking any drugs. And like, it should have stopped a long time ago, And I was like, I'm going to try and not drink either. It's been hard though, go to social situations, everyone's drinking. So I'll have like a beer or something like that. But I always thought that like, I was dreading 40, man.
Okay.
Like my early 30s, man, like I wasn't in a good way at all. I was really depressed, and I was just really unhappy, and I was just like abusing drugs like every day pretty much just to try and numb myself. And then I started becoming a bit healthier. And then it was really 2020 that changed things. Like, I feel bad sometimes saying this, but 2020 was amazing. Like the whole COVID thing for me, even though like I was lucky to have still work, even though I was getting less money, but I had more time to work on myself and more like personal development.
Mm-hmm.
So I started thinking about, what were things were important to me. And then I sort of, actually I read this book. It was called The Answer. And it was weird because my sister-in-law had given me this book like a couple of years before, and I'm devastated that I didn't read it when she gave it to me, because it really changed the way I thought about life and like the things I can do in life. And I feel like that really sort of changed my mindset and the way I realized, fuck, I can do anything I want in life. I just have to decide what I wanted to do and then and just go for it. Whereas like all these other years, like I was just sort of fucking around. I kind of knew what I wanted to do, but not really. And then I was always dreading turning, like when I was really in a bad way, I was dreading turning 40. I thought that, because I never wanted to be old, Yeah, leading up to 40, I was, I wasn't really thinking about it that much. But then when I turned 40, man, I was like, whoa, man, I don't know what happened, but I felt so good. I was like, man, I've never felt better. I feel like maybe because I'm kind of know more about what I want to do now, I know more about myself and the direction I'm on, I've never felt better.
Dude, it's like aligning all the things in your life.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
It's that'll be a big part of it. But when I say like, getting off, just taking better care of yourself.
Yeah, that's it.
Right? Like it just changes your mentality completely and your outlook, and like you spend a lot less time coming down and hungover.
Yeah, and you just feel, oh man, I don't know about you, but dude, my hangovers, I could have like one beer, I reckon now, and then the next day I'm fucked. And it's just not worth it, especially when I have things I want to do. Like I want to be in the studio. I can't just sit around. Like if I'm just sitting around doing nothing all day, I feel really guilty and like I'm wasting my life.
Yeah.
I feel like I always have to be doing something.
I'm exactly the same, man. Like I find it very hard to sit still. I get so much out of doing things.
Yeah.
That doing nothing, it does feel like a waste of time. And, people will say that sometimes you just need to...
You do need it every now and then, I reckon. There's a bit of a break.
But, like, when I take breaks, then I just feel as though that, like, I've moved backwards. So that's, for me, that's something that I need to be working on. But, man, I hear you about, like, the whole just taking better care of yourself, because for me it was last winter. So last year, I was in a bad way as well. And it was one of those things where, like... just sick all winter for the 3 months. I was just back to back, and then boom, COVID was like to end a 3-month stint. And then at that point, I also had no idea what I was going to be doing. Where's my career going?
Yeah.
So then it was just like physically ill, and then mentally ill, and then when you both, and they both started, I was just spiraling out. So then I was like, fuck, man, I'm gonna have to start making some changes. The first thing I did was like, all right, I want to just lace up my shoes. I'm going to start running. All right. So for about 5 months, I ran every day, 3Ks every day. Mm-hmm. And then amongst that time as well, there was like still going out and drinking, whatever. So then part of that 5 months was that now I'm running hungover. And then that was painful, man. It was painful.
I would not be able to do that.
No, well, there were times when I've just stopped, like, I'm going to spew. But then after the run, never felt better. So for me, it's like, hey, look, you can go out and drink, and then you just got to run, and you feel better.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, I don't want to run hungover.
Yeah, then that's it. Because you're not giving it, like, you don't have full energy, You're not giving it your best.
No, I'm just punishing myself at that point.
That's
it's like, now it's like, you want to drink, you can drink, but you're going to run, right? Now there you go, suffer. But then I'm like, I don't want to run hungover, so what do? Then I've got to just cut back on the drinking. And then, then take eating better, and then just doing all these things just to bring life into harmony, right?
It definitely makes it easier when you're, taking better care of yourself, eating healthy, exercising. It all just like comes together, and like you just start feeling a lot better. Like it's so true when they say like, exercising or whatever, makes you feel better and
Oh, yeah,
releases
man.
endorphins or whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it, right? So you start doing this, you take one little action, and then it starts working out for you, and you're like, you know what? Now I'm feeling better. Maybe now I can just start looking at all the other shit that I didn't want to look at because it was all just too hard, right?
Yeah.
So now I can start looking. It's like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do to take back control of my life? And then when you start taking actions that way, then you start seeing the confirmation that you're moving in the right way.
Yeah.
And then those actions lead to good results. The results make you feel better. You
That's
feel
it.
better, and then
I feel like, when you're kind of like doing, when you're feeling better, you're thinking like, positive thoughts, and you are, going in the direction you want to go in. I feel like you start attracting all that law of attraction stuff. I fully believe in it, So
Yeah.
I feel like the more you do those sort of things, like positive thinking and taking action and all those sort of stuff like that, it really does help your life, and you do start attracting, positive
man.
and good things into your life. Whereas like if you're always complaining and always, you're just sooking about everything, then that's all you're focusing on. So that's all you're going to see, and that's all you're going to bring into your life,
Yeah, no, I agree. Like my
And
wife's got this, well, actually at the old place, she had a poster up in our bedroom. It's like, what you were seeking is seeking you. And I had to sit on that for a little while. I'm like, well, which way is this working? But then I kind of get it, like exactly as you were saying, is that when you start moving in a certain direction, there are other people that also go in that certain direction.
That's it.
And like, I guess there's no coincidence that we're sitting here and having this conversation.
That's it.
As well.
That's
like
it. Yeah.
That's it. Here's a perfect example of that. And so like that's kind of what I found as well. And then even with my circle of friends, that we're all hitting life at about the same mark. Like they're all having kids, and when you have kids, it changes, it shifts your thinking as well. And then the ones that that you don't align with. I mean, like the friends that you've had for a long while, you kind of grow up and you grow up together, right? Not just in age, but just in your overall development. And then if you're aligned in a certain way, then that bond just becomes even stronger as you go. And then, then you feed in this, and it becomes more perpetual, and it just grows and grows and grows. And then everyone else that's coming into your life is at that same level, that same wavelength.
Yeah, that's it.
And then it just keeps on accelerating from there.
Yeah, it is weird. Like getting older, like I'm the type of person that, like, if I've been friends with someone, even if I haven't seen them for like 4 years, if they were my mate, they're going to be my friend for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I may not keep in contact with them as regularly as I should, but they're still my friend. And then you find new friends along the way in different. Like from doing the art stuff, I've, met a ton of cool people that, and that's later on in life, but I've still got all my old friends, but majority of my old friends aren't really into the same thing as me. So it's kind of like, you pick up new friends along the way, and you kind of have to, because, you can't do everything solo,
Yeah, definitely not in art. It's one of those things in creativity that you need other people around you.
Yeah.
And this is part of that, like being surrounded by people that have different creative visions, they're just injecting different creative juice as well, and just to learn from them. But we're with art especially, and this is kind of what I've found, meeting up with new people and surrounding myself with other folk that, like, it felt right. Like at the start doing this, it was more like, oh, well, look, let's see how it goes, right? Like I love meeting up with people, just catching up for coffees. I get a lot from them. I'm learning a lot, so I may as well just put it on tape and share. And then if someone else gets something out of it, then awesome. But then the more I've been doing it, the more it feels right. And it's sort of like the what I was previously doing, or I guess like along that life journey of just trying different things and then meandering till I got to this point. Nothing really was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But then now I'm doing this. I'm like, fuck, you know what?
Right.
Like, it feels right. And going back to what I was saying about, like, it took 20 something years of that whole creative journey, I suppose,
Yeah.
of being artist, illustrator, designer, to the point where I'm like, you know what? I get more out of speaking with other people than I do get out of just creating the work
Yeah.
itself.
I guess because you learn when you're speaking to different people, especially like a lot of different people from coming from different backgrounds, you're learning something new in every podcast, I'm assuming, you know?
It is really wild, man. Like, because when I started doing this, when doing the research and listening to other podcasters talk about how they came up and did it, you know, some of the narrative was about numbers, right? So you need to get this number of downloads, you need to hit this number of episodes. All right, cool. All right, sweet. Then it became more of like, okay, so now I need to get these numbers under my belt. But then as soon as I started doing it, it was more like I'm getting so much value from every episode that it doesn't even feel like another one, right? It feels like it's just so much substance in there. And with every episode that I do and just meeting with different people, there's so much I've drawn from that, and it completely changes everything for me.
Well, that's it. If you enjoy it, you know?
Yeah.
Do it until you don't enjoy it, I feel. That's the way I look at things. I'm like, hopefully, with the art stuff I'm doing now, I can see myself doing it for a long time because I really enjoy it. But all the other sort of projects I've had along the way to get to where I am now, I've enjoyed them. But then there's always been something there where I felt like, shit, do I really love this, you know?
Yeah. So now you're investing so much of yourself into your work. How do you see this growing, or what are you going to be doing with it? Is this, you have an aesthetic, and you know what? I'm going to get back to this, but the collaborations that you've also done, there was one in particular with Sahil Roy.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I love that, man.
Oh, thank you, bro. Yeah. We were both really stoked on that.
That, just the way that both of your aesthetic, your styles, it complemented
it really
well,
worked.
man.
It was actually the easiest because like Sahil and me, like we've been in sort of similar circles for like 10 years, like forever, and I'd met him here and there but never properly, and then he reached out to me one day and was like, do you want to work on some collabs? And it was kind of like around, it was 2020 or might have been like started 21 or the end of 2020 or something. And it was like as soon as we hung out, like the first night we like worked on these collages, it was just like, he was like, bring some posters, we'll just have a fuck around. And that first piece we did was actually really sick. Yeah. We didn't put it in the collection, but from that piece we were like, oh man, the styles work so well together. Yeah. And like, so it was just easy. So then the rest of it, it just sort of really flowed. And we both both really into like hip hop music, and so it was easy to come up with the concept of what we wanted to do. Yeah, because it was all based on like rappers that had passed away, and it was just kind of like an easy, like when the first few ones we did, it was kind of like I would do a bit of collage here, he would do something, and then we got to the point where it was easier if I did a full collage and then I gave the piece to him, or I brought the piece to his studio, and then he would start doing his thing, ripping away at it. And then if I needed to add anything onto it, I could do it from there. Yeah. And that we found that was the best way to do it. Yeah, cool. But it was like the easiest. Like I haven't done heaps of collaborations, but I did collabs with like when we did the clothing brand and things like that. But this was like the easiest, most natural collab I've ever done. Yeah, it complemented so well. And it just got me thinking that your style does lend itself to doing a lot of collaborative pieces to introduce different textures and a different aesthetic. Because like yours is pretty well layered, and then you can introduce different artists into your space as well. But does that help you with being inspired to try for sure things? Like definitely working with Sahil, because like before I started doing the collage stuff, like I didn't know anything about like the art world or anything. Like I didn't really hang out with people that were actually making art unless it was like graffiti, or it was more like graphic design stuff. So then working with Sahil, I saw other ways he worked and little techniques that he did. So I tried to sort of incorporate some of those things I learned from him into my work, which I thought was really cool.
And then what's next, man? Because this your aesthetic, I've seen it how it has evolved. Like you were saying, there was a lot more less effort or consideration. That's probably the better word. Less consideration for the composition or the layering.
Yeah.
And you kind of had less control over how the final outcome turned out. So how are you going to be now? How does your work evolve from here?
Well, I mean, definitely have ideas of like things I want to try out. And now, like when I first started doing these collages, I thought that they had to be like perfect, like no air bubbles, but I think that was me coming from like a graphic design sort of background where it's like things have to be a bit cleaner than. But now that I feel it's easier, like almost when there is texture, it makes a piece more interesting.
Yeah.
But I definitely have ideas and things that I want to try out. I want to do more murals now that I've done the Wonder Walls ones. As long as I've got like full creative freedom to do what I want.
Yeah.
More murals. I definitely want to do more shows, but I want to do it on maybe a larger scale with different sort of I'd love to do like a show that was the whole floor, or maybe a couple of the walls were just like maybe the whole floor like covered in like a vinyl wrap of all my collage.
Hey, that'll be cool.
More of like an installation sort of piece.
Installation. That'll work really well.
Yeah. And there's like some people, like I have a friend and he's all about that. So he could probably help me with that. But maybe that'll come like after a few more shows. But I definitely want to do more shows. Like my goal was to do a show a year, but it's a lot of work and it's a lot of money to put into and a lot of planning. So we'll see how that goes.
How long? What was the runway like for that show? For these things happen.
Some of the pieces, like there was a few of the pieces I already had, and then the majority of the pieces I made for the show. But all up, I'd say like it actually maybe like 4 or 5 months of all planning and trying to figure it out and like where I'm going to have it and like how I'm going to lay it all out.
Yeah.
So actually it wasn't too bad, but...
So you had to get the space first? Was that the first thing?
Nah, so originally I thought about like how many pieces I want to do.
Yeah. And
then I was always looking for a smallish kind of space because I didn't want to, my studio's small, so I couldn't create like, 25 pieces or anything like that. So I wanted a space that wasn't too big, that didn't look empty if the walls weren't covered. So I sort of thought about how many pieces I needed, and then I started shopping around for the kind of spaces I was looking for.
Yeah, because it worked out.
It worked out perfect. Yeah, and it looked really cool. It was really cool to see all my work in the one space. Because like I've done group shows, but it just didn't. I feel like my work didn't have as much impact. Whereas like when it was a whole room of all my stuff, it was like it really sort of shined a bit more, I think.
Yeah, one of the great things about your work is that scale doesn't change how much impact it has.
Yeah.
Like a lot of those perspex pieces.
Oh yeah, they were fun to make. Yeah.
So was that still a collage sitting behind the perspex?
Yeah. So it was just like a black and white collage, the usual technique I would do, and then I just took out the glass of the frame and replaced it with a fluoro perspex.
Yeah, cool. That worked.
Yeah, like so I did one. That was just an idea I had. I did one, and then when I did it, I was like, damn, this looks I was so excited about it. So I was like, it made me feel good. And I'm like, I want to do more of them. So then I started trying to source different colored perspex. The colors were kind of limited, but they pretty much had all the colors I wanted. There was a few, like I would have liked to have like a fluoro sort of like purple, but I don't know, don't think it exists. But that was real. I was really happy with all those, and they seemed to like all of those sold out. So
yeah, for sure,
people obviously like them.
Yeah,
and I would like to do them like larger, but it's just trying to get the larger sheet of perspex and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so even something like a small piece of yours, I guess that like how they popped was that they were just the vibrancy of the perspex.
Yeah, for sure.
But even the smaller scale ones, they have a lot of impact when sitting on a white wall.
Yeah, especially with a clean white wall, and then the lighting is nice.
Especially
with the fluoro, it really makes it pop.
And the fluoro trim.
Yeah.
If you have like fluoro trim, which you do, it's really cool. There's an artist that I'll dig him up afterwards, but he works with neon perspex as well, but he uses the neon perspex as the frame.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, so I'll show you some of that after, and like he does a lot of abstract shapes as well. So he would be, we're not talking about anything rectangular, it's real abstract, and he will like it would be custom made frame.
Oh, is it Liam?
Snoodle.
Yeah, I follow him. Yeah. Those I think they're perspex frames.
They're
are
perspex
they?
frames, yeah.
They look sick.
Yeah.
I saw one of those at some art fair. I can't remember what it was called, but it was like earlier in the year. I was like, it was a few months ago or whatever.
Yeah.
And I saw one of his, and it was like kind of triangle-y one. We had like, I think, an orange perspex frame, and I thought, damn, that's a sick.
So I grabbed one of his prints not long ago at Outre Gallery in Brunswick, and they had some of the perspex ones out back. I'm like, I've got to see this. I've got to check it out. They opened it up, and it was probably about yay big, probably a bit bigger, maybe about like 70 centimeters, and it popped, man.
It looks sick, yeah. And I think he maybe comes like has a bit of a punk aesthetic as well. Like I've seen some of his other work, and it had a bit of punk vibes to it as well. But he makes crazy work. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, I love that. I love having that contrast, because a lot of it was just black and white.
Yeah.
Black and white painting with that neon frame, that contrast. And this have you come across this artist, the Felipe Pantone?
Oh, dude.
Oh man,
he's the king.
Yeah, isn't he?
He makes some wild stuff.
Yeah. That's
like even his graffiti was sick.
Early day graffiti.
And then
stuff.
But all the stuff he makes now, like those kind of circle things where you spin it, and it's like this.
The sculptural art.
It's like a kaleidoscope, you know.
Yeah.
Oh man, that shit's crazy.
Yeah, seeing that transition going from like I think he started off as predominantly just graph work.
Yeah, he was just graph, and then just more like did big walls, and now he just does.
It's whatever the fuck he wants.
Whatever the fuck he wants, exactly. Yeah. It's so sick to see.
Wicked. His sculptural stuff it's crazy. I would love to have one of those up.
Yeah, for sure. That's something I'd like to get into making sculptures.
Yeah.
I don't really know exactly what I would do yet, but it does look like it would be fun.
Yeah.
You know? And even just give it a shot, and if I didn't like it, I wouldn't do it again.
You got to
give it a shot. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, there's many ways that your work can go. But yeah, it's been really interesting to see how you've kind of like had that connection with embodying yourself and putting it into the work. And it's not just about the aesthetic, but it's just about the message that goes with it, and then just like that emotion that you're trying to evoke.
And then like I've spoken to a few people, and they say like they've seen my work like from when I was doing Don't Sleep, the little graph mag, to Common Dust, the clothing, to now, and they say, what I'm doing now is like fully me. And I feel like what I'm doing now is like everything I've done creatively has like led up to the work I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And like everything I've been into in my whole life, like skateboarding, graffiti, music, all these sort of things, it's just all come together. It's almost like you chuck everything I've done in life in a blender, and it's come out to the work I'm doing now.
That's cool, man.
That's the way I see it anyway.
Yeah. Now you just got to grab more ingredients and throw it into the mix.
That's it, yeah. Like I'm always trying to think of like, even now I'm like, okay, so I've done the solo show, I've done Wonderwalls, and I'm like, fuck, what am I going to do next,
So what is next then?
Well, I still want to make T-shirts and things like that, because I really enjoy doing that. I just don't want to do it as like a streetwear brand. So it'd be more like the random T-shirt here and there as like a personal brand.
Yeah, cool.
I still like doing photography, and I like making zines, so I'm going to continue to make zines. And then just, work on a new solo show eventually. Mm-hmm. Do bigger pieces, hopefully. Do more murals if I can get them.
I love it, man. Like the stuff there's so much tactile to it, like you're still doing the things that, like a book that we're holding, right? Rather than just seeing it on screen, something that you can hold and feel.
I've always really liked, I love Instagram and the internet and things like that, but there's something about getting like printed media, especially if you made it and you're flicking through it and you're like, damn, this is actually, if it's made well, or even if it isn't made well, if it's like just a little stapled zine, it's still sick to see.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's a good point, man. I've been really out of touch with that. I used to collect a lot of magazines, a lot of books, and I've just been out of touch.
Yeah.
And I've got to get back into that.
Oh, dude, I love it, man. Like, I'll buy books for the covers,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have a flick through, and then I might not read them for like years, you know? And then one day I might pick them up, and I'm like, damn, this is actually a fresh book, you know?
Yeah. With your art, when you were talking about, like not being too precious with it and is allowing for, the errors and the
mistakes and
mistakes
things like
and all
that,
that.
yeah.
I think that adds a lot of quality to it, right? Like
Yeah.
one of the things that I love about seeing art is that I just think when I'm like standing in front of a piece of art, it's like, fuck that, the person that made this, they touched it with their hands, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There was, when I was at the Louvre and there was a sketch, a Leonardo da Vinci sketch.
Mm-hmm.
It was nothing much, just a piece of paper with some chalk thrown up, like some graphite thrown up. And I was like, he stood this far away from it. He touched this with his own hands.
Yeah.
And then, when you're talking about moving into the digital era, when a lot of what we see and what we experience is just from a device, having your art and having the imperfections of it, I think that is what is going to separate the work that we do as creatives and as artists versus what Mid-Journey, about AI art. It doesn't have that quality that, when we see a piece of art, we can appreciate with yours, like the colors, the composition. But then when you see all the little imperfections, or like with yours, just the randomness of each tear or an air bubble, that is what we really resonate with.
Yeah.
Like, it's just those, you probably don't even realize, man. But then when you see that, and like, there's an immediate connection to
It's
that.
more, I guess I don't know, more authentic maybe.
Yeah.
Because it's an art, like I was saying, like when I first started, I wanted it to be perfect and it had to be smooth. And if there was a crease or an air bubble, I'd be so off it and I think I'd have to start again. But now I'm like, it's all part of it, The more creases and textures and stuff like that, the more real that piece is, because it's made with your hands, Like, no one's perfect.
And then when you see on the other side of that, when, let's say if someone creates a piece of digital art and they want to show it in situ, they'll go get like a poster texture.
Yeah, that's
that has
it.
those
Yeah,
imperfections. Like, so they're intentionally trying to add that to something that's already artificial. And I think that adds that layer of, like, it makes it look more authentic, makes it more tactile and real.
For sure. Especially if I'm trying to sort of, like, the main inspiration is like, the torn bill posters and things like that. So obviously, if you go to the street with all the bill posters ripped off, they're not perfect, There's so many imperfections there.
Yeah.
So much texture there. So
that's the beauty of it.
It's the beauty of it. So if I'm trying to mimic that, I need to, care less about how clean it is and go for more of the style.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just layer that in. And then again, man, with your work, you balance out that randomness with it and those imperfections with a lot of consideration of trying to be perfect. You still want to have the right balance in the composition. You still want to have the right balance in the colors versus black and white, and all that. Man, it's sick, dude. I love it.
Oh, thank you, bro.
I'm looking forward to seeing what you're coming up with next, man.
Thanks, man.
I mean,
Thanks.
You've had a killer year. Your solo exhibition.
It's been good, man. Like,
Wonderwall.
it's been busy. I've been very grateful for,
Yeah,
it's been good.
sick,
and I'm
dude.
always trying to, like I was saying, I'm always trying to think of the next thing or work on something. After the show, like the last few weeks, because I had the show and then, leading up to Wonderwalls, I feel like it's been a bit nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'll take a bit of a break and chill out for a bit and then I'll start working on the zine. Because the zine will be like based off all the photos I took in Korea.
Yeah, cool. I've seen some of that stuff that you shared. There's some good shit up there.
So I think it'd be pretty cool. And then I'll mix that with, while I was there, I was kind of like ripping things off the street and doing like a few little sketchbook collages.
Yeah.
So I'll put a few of those in. Hopefully they look all right.
You do a bit of that, don't you? You just kind of take whatever you can off existing posters and then work it into your own work as well.
That's it. Like mainly all the stuff in the show was like, I got posters printed for it, but I have done a couple of pieces where, I've ripped off posters off the street, which I found was really cool because it's like, it's obviously none of it's my designs, but the way I'm creating it is like my style, you know?
Yeah, your
And
work is the composition.
Yeah,
it's the
that's
same
it.
as someone like Daft Punk taking, a beat from this
Yeah.
and then just remix it into their own
That's
thing.
it. And it's a thing like I've always sort of thought, the work I do, like, it's laying paper down, it's a collage, anyone can do it, but everyone has a different flavor.
Yeah.
So even if they tried to do it exactly the same as mine, it's still going to look a bit different.
Yeah, for sure, man. And then it's also just that it was your hands that touched it. You tore that bit off.
Yeah.
At that moment in time.
That's it.
As well. And
Yeah.
it's going to be, and for you, will be a different result the next time you do it as well.
Yeah, that's it. And as much as I like, sometimes I try and plan out the rips, but you just can't, like the paper might go in a different way,
It's
and
got
then it
its own
kind of like
grain.
makes it look cool.
Yeah. Where can people find you, man?
So obviously on Instagram,
Yeah.
at chico.1, W-U-N.
Yeah.
And then on my website, www.chico-1.com.
Yeah.
And then they can hit me up on email, hello@chico-1.com.
Dude, this has been fun, man. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it's
doing
been
that.
great, man. Thanks for
coming
having me
by,
on.
man. And it was such a... I don't know, like with every conversation I have, I never know which way it's going to go. But, like I thought that we'd be talking a lot. We did cover a lot of your art, but I had no idea that we'd be having a whole talking about the life journey as well. So that's something
I've really enjoyed that, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. Like that's something that I want to get from people, because work and life, as in the creative work and life, it's all intertwined, right?
For sure.
Like, and then as you told us today as well, that how much of your work had changed, or even just your life experience did push you into this direction. So thanks for sharing all this, man. It's been a lot of fun.
No worries, man. Thanks for having me on. It's been great.
Sweet. That's all right.
Cool. Thank you, bro.